If you're on the list, I will call your name, and then after that, we'll hear from people who aren't on the list. Welcome.
Good day, supervisors. I've sent all of you an email regarding a resolution to sort of mitigate the weather modification programs they've been doing here in the county. And there was several things I wanted to talk about. The main thing is that there's no public oversight. Private corporations can modify our weather without any public oversight or consent. There's no environmental impacts reports from what they're doing. And one of the reasons they say they're doing it is to slow global warming. So they will put these particulates up in the air, for instance sulfur or aluminum, to reflect the sun back out into space. However, it is trapping certain pollutants inside our atmosphere. And so this is one of the things I'm concerned with. The official scientific geoengineering scientists are proposing to dump or spray or put 10 to 20 million tons of these particulates in our air a year. Their plans have actually been going on. I've documented it for the last 3 years. There's a friend I met who's documented it for the last 8 years. And so I presented you with this resolution, which was drafted by Rosalind Peterson, Dr. Rosalind Peterson. She has the Agriculture Defense Coalition.org website, and she is imminent in that it's going to have an effect on our agriculture and our economy. So we need to have some sort of geoengineering or weather modification governance regarding these plans. And so I sent you all a link to the Board of Supervisors meeting regarding this. They had an entire plan, entire meeting dedicated to the weather modification programs going on in Shasta County. And they found high levels of the chemicals and toxins that are in the geoengineering patents in the groundwater, the soil, and the hair samples of people that thought they were being affected by it. And so what I would request to you is we have a specific meeting regarding this geoengineering weather modification programs that are going on. And
since this is your first time here, you may not be aware that we have a 3-minute time limit, but I'll give you just a couple seconds to wrap up.
Okay, so yeah, thanks again for your help, and any support would be gratefully appreciated. And once again, a request to do a specific meeting regarding the geoengineering programs here in the county. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I first could not believe it, and I started looking at the skies, and these are not normal. They're not natural. There's something going on. I don't know who it is or why they're doing it. All I can testify is it's not natural and it's not normal. It's got to be some outside influence doing that. Thank you.
I'm here to give you testimony that chemtrails, they're not contrails, are indeed real. They're spraying almost every day. I watch the clouds and watch the spraying program going on. I want to tell you that we're in very great danger from the pollution that's coming down over us. And we've been led astray by the military-industrial complex, and they're responsible for the cloud's creation and weather manipulation programs. They're dark operations. That's why they're not out in the media.
I look around and I see people are starting to look up and see this. Many times I've spoken about chemtrails, and I get this blank look on my face. What are you talking about? I'm saying, look up. As a pilot, before I fly, I look up. And so, boy, they're really out there working.
When you look up at the sun and you see a white haze, that is aluminum floating in the air right now, and it's coming from the aircraft.
There's a huge amount of aluminum being found because these...
Matt Stevens. I was a television weatherman for 20 years. These chemtrails are absolutely required to impact whatever weather event they were designing. And the trails were an absolute necessary ingredient for them to achieve their weather modification goals.
Chemtrails are a key element in the whole thing because they're obviously a way of putting a highly reflective material into the atmosphere.
With cloud seeding, the cooling will be achieved by making clouds reflect a bit more sunlight back to space than they would otherwise, and less sunlight reaching the surface would tend to cool the planet.
So let's say we were doing geoengineering because we wanted to make the weather a little bit better.
The more we see these trails in the sky, the less rain we get. Virtually all scientific data, even from the proponents of geoengineering, state clearly saturating the atmosphere with particulates will create drought.
Much has been made of this issue of damage from precipitation.
If the issue is understanding the climatic response, which was, I think, most of where this is going, and it's exactly where the precipitation gets higher or lower.
There will be monsoon failures during that period. There will be huge hurricanes.
It's likely to cause some damage in some places.
The global studies indicate there will be some impact on precipitation patterns, and obviously there's a lot more opportunity for work in that area. Just seeding can be pretty effective for the clouds we explored, but the interactions between seeding and precipitation in the form of drizzle are really complex.
So we're finding the aerosols, the metal particulates, the weather engineering, whether it's scalar, ionic, or orgone, or the chi of the atmosphere. All of those can be used and leveraged to create weather events that are several standard deviations or outside what would be typically normal. Before jumping on the chemtrail bandwagon was I needed a motive. Without a motive, you can't say what they're doing and why they're doing it. You have to have a motive.
What are derivatives or products that commercial hedgers would use, such as an insurance company or an energy company, to hedge risk that's associated with the weather? Precipitation or a hurricane or general heating days is what they're basically called. Certain temperatures or higher temperatures are going to associate with more energy, so they're going to want to hedge that risk. If you can structure a product where you say, okay, I'm going to buy insurance against it raining more than 10 inches in this area. If my risk is say $1 million, but I'm insuring for $10 million, then I can make it rain and collect a premium on the $10 million. Of course.
So the agenda was drought. The agenda was to kill the storm, at least in that one particular spot.
You're reducing the food security of people through deploying these kinds of approaches that potentially 2 billion people could have their food disrupted by such interventions.
It affects farmers by their ability to plan what they're going to be growing.
You see a tremendous and significant loss of property and crop production. Many times this will cause farms to go out of business, and when farmers go out of business, they usually have to sell, and then if there's somebody waiting in the wings to buy their land and then turn that land over to the production of genetically modified crops, you can see where there would be kind of a strategic advantage there.
The fact that it's cheap isn't necessarily a good thing at all, as I'll come to in a second. The fact that it's cheap is part of the hard problem of governance. The fact that it's cheap means any small state or even conceivably individuals could do this, and that is a very dangerous thing.
There's probably under $10 million per year, and maybe far less than that, being spent on geoengineering research. It's a mix of a handful of government grants and some private money, including support from Bill Gates.
There is a line of research on what's called geoengineering. The climate getting worse means that many years their crops won't grow. There'll be too much rain, not enough rain. Things will change in ways that their fragile environment simply can't support.
Bill Gates invests in geoengineering and he profits from the destruction through his investment in Monsanto. Monsanto is coming in and they're saying, we have a solution for your problems. Basically, if you control the weather and the seed source, you essentially control all food production.
You can kill a storm in place. That's easy to do with HAARP. You just change the polarization, you change the ionization of the atmosphere, and the storm will fall apart.
HAARP is actually an acronym for High Altitude Active Aurora Research Program, and it in the patents for the HAARP system, it describes what is detailed as this ionospheric heating creates situations where crops are either so severely flooded that they're destroyed.
So it's very easy to add those particulates of aluminum, barium, and whatever else they want to put in there. And as you add heat to that, those particulates then radiate the heat into the atmosphere and it warms. Let's just say the storms can develop more violently, more quickly, in places that are not necessarily as where you would expect them to be.
We have altered weather patterns that are also stated as consequences of geoengineering. Since these global weather modification programs appear to have been ramped up so radically in the last decade, our weather here has changed unimaginably.
And we've got technologies available to us now that can do, continent-sized projects. Is all of the persistent trails behind it. So that tells me, Michael, that they are engineering this storm to a great degree. Now, all of this stuff is chemtrail debris or chemtrail clouds that had been laid down over Utah and over southern Colorado earlier in the day.
What we see in the sky matches virtually all geoengineering patents. The fact that hundreds of lab tests taken from all over the globe match exactly the ingredients stated in geoengineering patents as primary elements.
But not very much. And there's certainly uncertainty about how bad those effects will be, but they will be extremely bad.
One of the most hardy brush forms known, the manzanita, and it looks like it's been hit with insecticide. And we're seeing this throughout the ecosystem. And there's virtually no growth, and we see whole plants, whole mature plants, 50, 60, 70-year-old, almost trees die out for no reason whatsoever that we can find other than the contaminated soils. So if it's in the rain, it's in the soil. And now we see incredibly hardy organisms dying for no other cause that we can find other than the contamination in our rain from these aerosol operations.
And so you get ecosystem collapses.
And if you control the weather, you're going to control the planet. It's that simple.
Since the release of What in the World Are They Spraying, millions of people have woken up to these crimes against nature and humanity. We believe the next prudent step, not only in waking, but also activating millions of more people and moving closer towards holding the governments and corporations responsible, accountable, is addressing the weather control aspect.